What's up, guys and gals? Welcome back to the Nerd Castle for the next episode in our Q&A. One of my favorite things I get to work on every single week. I sat down. It was Friday. Normally I recorded on Thursdays, but since school got back in, I've started doing it on Saturdays because I feel like it increases the exposure of the Q&A series. So anyway, I sat down on Friday. I was like, I don't have a lot of work to do today. I gotta pop out a Q&A. I gotta do I don't know, maybe like a weekly indie newcomer. But aside from that, not a whole lot of things going on right now. It's a pleasure to have you back. I always have fun doing these episodes. If you don't know what it is, Q&A is where you and I hang out for a little while and I just answer questions that people sent me. It started out as just like this thing that I did because I thought it would be fun, and then people really seem to enjoy it. People seem to keep coming up with questions, and so I seem to keep making episodes. So without further ado, let's get this thing started and see exactly what we can mash out. Lord Phoenix asks, question, of all the survival games that you have played, what features and elements did you like the best? I think that The Long Dark is the go-to game here. I really like survival games that manage to make a game that doesn't have zombies or anything else. I like it when the entire world is after you, like you can freeze to death, you can starve to death, things like that. If it maintains realism, I'm usually pretty happy. Now, that's not to say that I don't like zombies and things like that, but those have their place, and I think they're a little bit oversaturated right now to the point where I've gotten very cynical about anything where it's like, oh, look, we're surviving on a big map, and there's other people shooting at me, and then there's zombies that are really no threat. Yay, maybe I'll just get shot at by other human beings for a while. I actually tend to like the little sandbox games, things like Empyrean, stuff like that, where you can fiddle around, build stuff, not have to worry too much about getting murdered. But at the same time, I like it when the hazards are environmental rather than just other players online like teabagging you and shooting you for no good reason. Not even like having a conversation with you, sniping you from a million hills away, you know what I mean? And so I think a lot of survival games either fall into two camps. They're either PvP related or they are like PvE and I guess scenery related, and I like the latter rather than the former, but I do like both. So Keegan's asks, what do you think about processed meat giving people cancer thing? I sure as hell ain't gonna stop eating meat. You know, I think I'm gonna go ahead and corroborate that. I have no idea. This is a subject that I'm completely and totally uneducated about. If you ever get a question about something you don't know about, people have this weird tendency to just like talk about it as though they just make it up as they go. I think that's the biggest problem is they get a question, they're like, I think I can bullshit my way through this and nobody's gonna call me on it. I'll be straight up with you. I don't know anything about processed meats, cancer, or anything else. All I know is that meat is delicious. I like eating it. It seems to be nutritious. I know that like red meat is supposed to be pretty bad for. I had a lot of chicken breast, I had a lot of turkey breast, things like that, them pechugas and all that fun stuff. Aside from that, I don't eat beef super often, but I do like beef fajitas and steaks and things like that. I mean, I think it's just like smoking or drinking or anything else. It's all things in moderation. Obviously, I think if you go over the board with any substance, whether it's a food, drug, drink, whatever, it's probably going to have negative side effects over the long term. And so the big secret here is just not to overdo it with things that you enjoy. I really like the South Park explanation of why we do the things we do, where, you know, we used to be this creature that just like lived out in the forest like a weird little, I don't know, pink jungle monkey type thing, and we got little shots of dopamine whenever we did something that was good, that was positive for our survival. And now that we've got a modern society where everything we want is 2 feet away and we can instantaneously get it, that dopamine, it runs wonders on us, and so we tend to get addicted to stuff. We tend to act in ways that is not acceptable, and you just got to be very careful about what you do. Keep things in moderation. At least that's what I try to do. Rookie Roo, how much candy got devoured tonight? Now, he's asking that question because my last episode went up on October 31st, which was Halloween. One of the coolest of holidays until you turn like 25, and then you're just like, man, guess I'll sit around my house and give little kids candy. It's weird how you can do that one night a year, but like if it was something like, I don't know, if it was like March 4th and I was just handing out candy to kids that knocked on my front door, I'd probably end up on some government agency watch list. Like, you ever think that how weirdly specific that is? Easter, too, I guess. You can give out candy on Easter. Not like door-to-door Halloween style, but still, you can give kids candy and stuff then. But I ate more pizza than anything else. I went to a friend's house. We got super drunk. We watched a whole bunch of Vines. We watched World Star for a while. Probably a couple hours, and then we played Street Fighter. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, I'm terrible at Street Fighter, so I ran his rating, like, into the ground. Still, I didn't get flawless. I was going up against people who were, like, the 100th best Ken in the world, and I was like, I kicked you in the face. And he was like, and then he whooped my ass. But I was like, yeah, got took out by somebody who's never played the game before. I was just mashing buttons. And so we drank a bunch of beer, we ate a bunch of pizza, and yeah, we did have some candy. I think we had like, those Tootsie Rolls. You know Tootsie Rolls come in fruit flavors now, too? What? I had fruity Tootsie Rolls. They were hella good. They basically just copying Starburst, though they taste identical. Like the fruit profiles, almost identical. But yeah, a lot of candy got eaten, although I've been laying back off it lately. I've been putting myself on a diet because I've been getting a little husky lately. I got a little gut thing going on, even though I'm working out like an hour and a half a day. And so I figured my eating has gotten back. I have a real bad tendency to binge eat. I have a problem with it. I do it all the time, and I had to like get rid of that in order to lose weight. And I've started binge eating again lately, and so I had to nip it in the bud and stop. But yeah, I ate a lot on Halloween. On holidays, I make exceptions. But other than that, not a whole lot of candy recently, but Halloween was pretty candy-filled. It was pretty awesome. Vince White asks, Splat, have you ever been friend-zoned? Indeed, I have. I got friend-zoned, so I was friends with a girl from, our families were friends, and so I grew up with her. I knew her since the age of like 8 or 9. And by the time I was 15 or 16, I started to have feelings for her. I told her. I was honest about it. I was like, I have feelings for you, and I'd like this to be something more. She said we've been friends for so long that I really feel like it would mess up our whole dynamic. And so I got friend-zoned. And you know what? I was okay within that situation. And hear me out here. We had a long-standing relationship as friends that had gone a long, long ways back. I had other options anyways, and so I did have feelings for her. But when she wanted to be friends, I understood, because it's kind of hard to transition from being friends for like 10 years into a romantic relationship. I get it. But from that situation, I learned a number of things that helped me stay out of the friend zone from that time forward. And in fact, it was kind of a jarring experience for me. And so anyways, I'm pleased to say I don't really get friend zoned anymore, and I don't think I have since then. I think ultimately it comes down to honesty. If you're interested in somebody, you just got to let them know and be like, listen, I'm interested in being with you romantically. And just being very, very forward about it. Not in terms of just being pushy, but I mean just being forward in your opinions, like bringing them forward. There we go. I knew I could word this better. I was like, man, this is sounding very, very odd. I don't think the forward is the word that I wanted. Just being honest. Being honest will help out. Hakan Sundberg. Project Aura, is it coming back to the channel now they've added more content? Honestly, I haven't checked in on it since I did the series. I played the game, I liked what they were going for, but it felt a little slow to me. I'll give it a look. Thank you for bringing it back up, because that's one of those games that's very, very easy to forget about, just because it's a low flyer, and so I'll check it out. I'll give it a look, and I'll see if there's something there that we can feature. Super Bowl 117. Hey, Splat, I have a question. What is your favorite thing that you've heard about Fallout 4 so far, or least favorite? Actually, I've been avoiding all news about the game entirely. I haven't watched any footage. I haven't watched anything because I'm a purist like that. I like to go into the game blind like we used to back in the day when you still had to go to stores to get video games and stuff. And there was no, like, easily available information aside from previews and things like that in magazines, which never quite do it justice. Those things were very gussied up. They made them look far more pretty than they actually were in practice. But I stay away from it. When it comes to games that I very much enjoy, like the Elder Scrolls and Fallout, I tend to not look at anything before they come out. And then we're probably just going to do a big, beautiful blind run when it comes out. It'll probably, I don't know. If it drops at midnight, I might pull an all-nighter to record it and have it out by morning when you guys are all waking up in the United States. Everybody else will have already been awake. But anyways, I'll probably drop it early in the morning on the day it releases if it releases at midnight. If it doesn't release at midnight, I may wait till the day after release to pump out like maybe 5 or 6 videos on the first day. I don't really know. I haven't decided yet how hard I want to go after this or whether I just want to keep it light and fluffy and just have it be a long-standing series. I'm already expecting, I'm going to get blown out of the water by all the big channels, so I've already accepted that this is probably not going to be an exposure series for me, but I don't give a damn. I just want to play the game on the channel because I missed the opportunity with Skyrim. I was just a little too late with Skyrim. Dog7 Gaming. Can a person in their mid-teens make a video on YouTube? Also, can a person who shares a house with 3+ people make it on YouTube? I think that it's possible. I mean, I think that you're going to have to seek out your audience because people tend to be a little bit harder on teenage people than they are on people like my age. Now, people on the internet are always going to be dicks to you. It's going to happen no matter what you do. But yeah, I've seen YouTubers who are like 16 or 17 and seem to make it work. They tend to have radio voices and things like that. But it can be done. I think it's just all about developing your presence and learning just how to entertain and how to hold attention. Aside from that, if you're sharing a house with people, yeah, you just got to find opportunities to do it. So I had a roommate when I first started YouTube, and I could not record when she was home because her dogs were super loud. They were always barking. You know, in general, it was just very, very difficult for me to capture content without something happening in the background. And so it's doable, especially if you have lousy. If you have loud, that's the word that I wanted. A little Freudian slip there. If you have loud roommates or anything like that, it's doable. You just have to kind of mesmerize their schedules. And then from there, you just have to learn to work inside like that 40 minutes of quiet that you get as fast as possible and not screw it up, which is also a learned skill. Braden Leach asks, hey, I always enjoy watching your Q&A, but I've never asked a Q before. Well, go ahead because I got all the A you could ever desire. You mentioned how you delved into Baldur's Gate. It made me wonder if you ever played Planescape Torment. Yes, I did, actually. I'm going to get rid of the second half of the question because it's more just like talking about Torment and how much you like it. I like Torment, too. Torment is super sick. Planescape Torment is one of those games, though, it's a little bit different from what most people are used to because it did essentially what just now, I mean, you can tell how far ahead of the curve it was because just now we're starting to see games like Pillars of Eternity that are emulating its style, but Planescape Torment was one of those games where it took standard D&D rules, it modified them a little bit, and it took a whole bunch of abilities and characters you'd never heard of from universes and planes that you had never heard of. Just a game with an amalgamation of very weird characters. It threw them into an RPG party, let you level up and have a good time in a strange, weird, almost Oddworld type location, and I liked it. Planescape Torment, the only thing that bummed me out about Planescape Torment is that there weren't different armor graphics and stuff like that until later on in the game. Also, the equipment was a little light. You spent a lot of time walking around talking to people, so I think I like Baldur's Gate better because it was combat heavier. But Planescape Torment still holds a very, very near and dear place in my heart. I bought it when it first came out, actually. I probably still have a disc around somewhere with the, it's still got the original graphic on top with the orange disc. It had like 2 or 3, I don't remember how many it had, maybe 2 or 3. I know Baldur's Gate had like 6. You were always changing discs with that game. It was ridiculous. Still, Baldur's Gate is good. I like Planescape Torment, though, too, just for the weird factor and also for the originality of the whole thing and what it was doing so far ahead of its time. Ghostly Business. Hey, Splat, do you groom your eyebrows? Nay, sir. Nay, good sir. Also, what's the best haircut you've ever had? I like mohawks. I really sincerely do. I got one right now, and I enjoy it. I like it a lot. I had really, really long hair, but long hair was hard to deal with. I did like the long hair because it took a long time to get there. It took dedication to get to, like, ass-length hair where it was, like, all the way down to, like, my hips and whatnot. But it's just too much maintenance. It's way too much maintenance. I had long hair for about 3 years. It took me about 4 years to grow it that long. And then I had it for, like, 3 years after that. And so from the age of, like, 16 to maybe 23 or 24, I had really, really, really long hair. And then I also had, like, a big anthrax goatee for a while. I liked heavy metal. Anyways. And so during that time, it's just a lot of work. Like, you have to get up so early when you're going to do anything because you got to, like, clean your hair all the time. You got to, like, keep it all nice and blow dry it out. Otherwise, it gets all nappy and weird and gross and greasy, and you got to make sure you brush it. It's just too much. It's too much. I like my mohawk once it gets a little bit longer. I'm probably going to let this one grow for, like, another year before I trim it. I like them once they get really, really long, and then I just let them flop over. It's one of my favorite hairstyles. Logan John William Raleigh. Man, that's a name right there. You sound like the kind of guy that, like, explored North America. Like, I am Logan John William Raleigh. Take me to your chieftain. I don't know. That's what it sounds like to me. Anyways, my question is, what is your absolute favorite food? Like, is there a local restaurant that you couldn't do without? Yeah, you know, I like anything Mexican food, to be honest. I love Mexican food from pupusas over to, like, standardized burritos and things of that nature. I really, really like Mexican food, and I don't think I could live without it. I've grown up my entire life in California, which is, like, everybody here. Actually, I think we probably eat more Mexican food here than we eat American food. Like, you can go to a dozen diners and, like, burger places, and they'll be half empty, but you go to any Mexican place in town, and it's always banging right around 6 o'clock. There's people falling out of the windows trying to get a seat. And so anyways, I grew up eating a lot of Mexican food. My mom used to make, like, fresh tortillas. My mom used to make, like, she used to make tortilla chips fresh. Like, she would actually do the deep frying and everything like that. And so I grew up eating a lot of Mexican food with fresh guacamole, fresh salsa, pico de gallo, and all that kind of stuff. Enchiladas, tamales. I used to actually, we had a lady that used to come into my Blockbuster and she would trade us tamales from movies because she made the most awesome, like, Grandmama Tamales ever. If you don't know what a Grandmama Tamale is, it's just basically anybody's Mexican grandma that makes tamales. They're, like, incredible. I don't think I've ever met anybody's Mexican grandma who does not make good tamales, and so I call them Grandmama Tamales. It means that there's, like, normal tamales, and then there's, like, Grandmama Tamales, and those are the ones that they're made with extra love. They, like, sit over the pot, like, infusing them with mystical magic love, and then you eat them later, and you're like, oh, this is the best tamale I've ever had in my life. And so anyways, Mexican food. I don't think I could do without it. After that, I like Italian food a lot. And then I also just like American junk food, burgers and fries and things like that. In fact, that's one of the reasons I get fat so easy because I love French fries. I can sit there. It doesn't matter what you put on it. Stacks of cheddar cheese, bacon, whatever. There's no way to ruin French fries. Question. Why do you dislike the Ultramarines? I think it's just because they're the Games Workshop favorite. I think people already answered this question down in the comments. But when it comes to the Ultramarines, they tend to catch a lot of favoritism. They get a lot of codex reviews and things like that. They tend to be the center of attention for the universe. Like, if anything ever happens in the Space Marine universe, it's always the Ultramarines that are, like, first on scene, adapting to it, and just really being Mary-Sued the hell out of by the writing staff over at Games Workshop. I also dislike it because, in general, they seem to have all these rules. Like, the Ultramarines are supposed to be very strict to the codex, everything that a Space Marine is supposed to be, and yet all the time in the lore, they don't just break the rules, they break the rules in big ways, and the people are just like, oh, well, it's the Ultramarines. Noah Peterson asks, what's the dankest meme ever in your opinion? I can't tell you what my favorite meme was, but I can tell you what my favorite troll action was. I spent like a year just sending meat spin to people, just messing with people. Like, hey, I got that report you wanted. There'd be like an attachment in there. They'd open the attachment, it would be meat spin. Oh, man, that was my favorite. I got so many people with that. It was just hilarious. Every time it's funny. Every time. You would hear him from the... You would hear him from the back of the office like, oh, what the hell, man? Every single time. Every single time. I also enjoyed cake rolling people a lot. But those aren't really memes, I don't figure. It's just ways to, like, get a reaction out of people and trick people. So those would be my two favorite internet-related tasks that I was doing back in the day when I used to troll people. That was in between the troll posts, though. Omega Nader Gaming asks, you may have already answered this, but how did you get into YouTubing in the first place? I was in college, I just switched majors, I was kind of bored, I was generally just kind of unhappy with life, I was watching Netflix all day, playing World of Warcraft like 10 hours a day and just feeling miserable and sorry for myself. And I had watched Let's Plays since like back in 2007. I've watched Let's Plays for a really, really long time, since like before anybody knew about them. I remember back in the original days on YouTube when you didn't even get paid for doing any of this, when you couldn't even make money from YouTube, there was guys doing like these walkthroughs where they would just narrate over the top of them, and anytime I wanted to find out if a game was good or not, I would just look up a Let's Play, and this was way, way, way back in the day. And so I had always wanted to start doing it, and I just never gotten around to it because I was busy or I was working or doing whatever else. I already had a career that I was working on, and I had all this blank space because I was giving up MMOs, and I was like, well, maybe I'll just do some gameplay videos. I'll have a good time and I'll just play around. I think I can do this. I've watched other people do it and it doesn't seem super difficult to me. I bet I can do this. And so just started making videos and it went from there. It turned into a big old thing and now it's my job, oddly enough. Never planned on it being, but hey, I guess if it falls into your lap, it falls into your lap. Random explosions. Kabwah! Did you say that you had an eye tattoo? What an odd question. No, I don't have an eye tattoo, but I do have a chunk of my eyelid missing because I got a chicken pox right on the edge of my eye. And then my mom still tells this story. I was running through the living room when I was like 3 years old, but I had the chicken pox and I tripped and I hit my face on a coffee table and it ruptured it on my eyelid right there. And so I've got a little Swiss cheese hole in my eyelid. And most people actually, nobody noticed it until high school. Once I was in high school, though, it was like everybody noticed. They'd be like, what's wrong with your eyelid? And it's because my eyelashes are missing right there. And so I've got that little Swiss cheese gap, and then I got a bunch of eyelashes missing. And people notice it. It's pretty ratty-tatty looking, but I kind of like it. It makes me feel edgy. I'd be like, what's that from? I'm like, I got in a knife fight. He stabbed me in my eyelid. I was like, ah! And I was like, he stabbed me in my eyelid. I shall return for swift Roenge. And never did. RDC Patches. Question, what type of guitar gear do you rock? I personally use a PRS single cut with some Marshall solid state half stack that I bought off of a friend. I actually don't have a lot of equipment right now. I sold it all so that I could go to college. I needed a bunch of money so I could pay the deposits on my apartment and some other stuff. I paid for my own college out of pocket, and so I ended up selling most of my gear after the band broke up and I had to go to college, because actually moving and all that stuff, like you got to pay like $3,000, $4,000 and just like random fees for moving and everything else. You got to pay the first 2 months rent, then you got to pay like fatty deposits. It was just like there was so much money up front that I needed to like give away in order just to get settled next to the college campus that I had to sell a whole bunch of my stuff. And so right now I've got a Les Paul. It's an Epiphone. I'm actually thinking about replacing it, but it's got sentimental value, so I haven't done it yet. I want to get a Gibson like Gold Top or something like that, but just I don't know. I stopped playing guitar for a while, and now that I'm getting back into it, the action on this guitar is so good. I like it a lot. And so it's kind of one of those rare guitars that I got it for, I don't know, like $600 or $700 back in the day. But the action on it is better than, I have friends that have $2,000, $3,000 guitars, and the action and everything. It's one of those rare guitars that's not expensive, but for whatever reason, it was just made better than all the other ones of the type. And I've stuck with it for a long time. It's a great guitar. It's nice and broken, and the action is fantastic. More importantly, I'm used to the action, which I think is the next thing up. And so anyways, I kind of keep it because of the sentimental value, because I like it so much, but I need to get something new. At this point, there are so many things that need to be fixed on my Epiphone that I don't feel like doing it myself because I just don't have the time. and I don't want to pay somebody to do it, so I may just like mount it on a wall somewhere for memory's sake, or keep it in a case and just break it out and play it every now and again and buy a new guitar. I'm not really sure. Aside from that, I don't have any heads or anything like that around, or any stacks. I have a couple of stacks that I could get a hold of pretty easily if I just hit up a couple of people, but meh, nothing to it. Nothing that you would want to bring up in a video like it's super awesome or anything like that. D-Man asks, landladies and lords are mostly assholes. Yeah, I can concur with that. I don't think I've ever had. I think you kind of have to be, though. Otherwise, people take advantage of you and they walk all over you. But at the same time, it sucks being a good renter who legitimately like gives a shit and like tries to take care of a place, because it always feels like the landlady is cracking down on you when you've never done anything to deserve it. And so anyways, the question here is, are you planning on buying a house in the near to far future? You know, in the Bay Area, houses like start at like $300,000. And so I don't know if I could get into a house anytime soon. I'm just not making that kind of money. And most places with your credit score and whatnot, even if you got really good credit, they want like 20-25% down when you first move in. And so honestly, this area is going through a lot of gentrification right now, where there's a lot of people from Texas, a lot of rich people that aren't from here. I mean, honestly, anymore in the Bay Area, you talk to anybody and they're not from here. Whereas when I was a kid, it was weird to have anybody that wasn't from here, because back then it was just kind of like an endless slum. And so nowadays the place is gentrifying quite a lot. Rent, I'll give you an example. When I first got out of high school, my first apartment, the rent was $425 a month, and that was in 2005, I guess, 2004-ish. And so now in 2015, rent at the exact same complex is $1,400 a month, and it's probably going to move up to $1,500 or $1,600 this month, which means I'm going to have to move out. And so the area is definitely going through some gentrification. It's definitely, it's because there's lots of jobs here. There's lots of tech startups and things like that. I can't hate people for moving somewhere where there's opportunity. If you live in Texas and there's no job for you, and you know that you can move to California off the money you made from your last job, and you can get $100,000 a year doing this thing that you know how to do, I don't begrudge you for doing that. But at the same time, it's been weird to watch the neighborhood change and kind of watch things get nicer. But at the same time, there's this weird shift period in between where it's not nicer, and so you're kind of living in a shitty area, but the rent is like $1,000, $1,200, $1,400 a month. And so anyways, buying a house around here is something that I'd love to do. I'd love to live near my family and near my girlfriend's family and everything like that, because I am a family person. I do respect family above everything else. I'd love to live here, but I don't know if it'll ever happen. There's condos around. The condos actually seem to be fairly well priced, and so I was thinking about going in on one of those, but it's still going to be another year or two of saving and scrimping and, hoping. But that's better than before, because honestly, when I was working at Best Buy or anything like that, I never even dreamed that I would ever own anything. I thought I was just going to rent forever. And so just to have the opportunity to be able to save and maybe someday do something like that is pretty sweet to me. It represents a step up. And so anyways, I'm trying to stay positive about it, not bitch too much about the real estate market around here. I may have to move further into the Bay. I'm not entirely too sure. I may have to move a little bit further away. I'm not really sure whether I'm going to go in or out, because prices are kind of weird out here, and they kind of vary depending on which little chunk of the Bay Area you're in. I think prices are decent in Petaluma right now, in places if you wanted to get out towards the North Bay. I'm in the East Bay right now, and the prices are just like, damn. But someday I'd like to own. I'm definitely tired of renting and dealing with neighbors and stuff like that. It's been pretty much an acutely negative situation since I turned 18 and moved out, so I'd like to have my solace and my silence someday. But that's going to be our last question for the day. My name is Splattercat. Thank you for joining me here at the Q&A of the Nerd Castle. I appreciate you guys sending your questions on down the pipe. If I didn't get your question, please, please, please hit me up with it again next week. I'll try to get it. I think we got 150 this week. I can only answer 10 to 15 to 20. And as you can see, that gives me quite the backlog. So anyways, I appreciate you all taking the time to spend a little bit of your own here with me. If you wanted to support the channel, I do have a Patreon that'll be down below, where you can donate monthly to keep me up and running. There are little rewards and things like that, like pictures of my cats in costumes. You can talk to me on the private message boards, things like that if you wanted to get on Patreon. Otherwise, make sure you check out the Twitch channel, because I go there Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and I feel like I do a poor job of publicizing it. I will see you all later. Hi, everybody.